Congratulations on the numbers. The company has come back really strongly, or at least the shares have come back really strongly over the last year. And you're saying that you haven't seen any real impact from the kind of political turbulence that the market initially priced in post-Brexit. Has that surprised you?
No, not really. I think, I'm a great believer in what we've delivered over the last year or so, and I think that's now been recognised, that we've got a great strategy. We've grown the business pretty dramatically over the last 4 years, and now we're adapting to perhaps moderating that growth and combining that with a bit more increasing the dividend payment, and we've set some pretty stretching targets for ourselves for 2020, where we expect to get our turnover up to 2.2 billion. And we're expecting profits to be coming in at around about 430 million, with a dividend increasing up to 32 pence from 17 pence this year. 2020
is an interesting date. Help to Buy, the UK government scheme that has been a big factor in the housing market, ends in 2021. Though, to be honest, I'm pretty confused about what the dates look like and how it's all going to work going forward from here. How would you phase that out? What would you replace it with? And can you give us any visibility on kind of what you're hearing? I'm sure you've got your ear to the ground on how this process is going to evolve.
Yeah, I think everybody realises that Help to Buy has been a huge success. You know, it's helped many people onto the housing ladder that wouldn't otherwise have been able to do so. So I think, yes, we've had some discussions with government. I know government are keen to talk to the industry and discuss what happens post-2021, which, and I think everybody agrees that you just don't cut this off. Perhaps the sensible thing to do is to go back and look at why it was introduced in the first place, what created that, and it was all to do with loan to values being very difficult to get a mortgage above 75% loan to value. That has now eased. It's much easier now to get 80% and towards 85%. So for me, the simple way to deal with this is we've got a formula that works. So perhaps to adapt it, instead of doing 20% Help to Buy, it just gets pegged down to around about 15%. And then perhaps in time that could come a little bit lower, which would be a sensible, smooth transition for the industry.
So how long would that taper operate for?
Well, I think, I suppose that's up for discussion, really, but you would expect it clearly to come in when the current system finishes in 2021, in March 2021. You might run for 3 years at that 15% level, and then you might think about, depending on what market conditions are, what mortgage availability is, what's happening with mortgages, you might then bring that down to 10%, say 3 years later.
What else is affecting the business right now? I remember the last time we spoke, we talked a little bit about labour costs. What's happening in the middle of the P&L in terms of the margin? What are you seeing? Is there any restriction there that you're operating under?
Yeah, I think, it's well documented. There is a skills shortage in the UK. And there are some concerns, of course, that with Brexit, we may find ourselves losing some, very competent EU workers. So there is some concerns in that area. We are seeing underlying build cost inflation of around about 4%. That's been the case now for a while, and I'm sort of expecting that to continue to be the case. The industry is trying to address the skills shortage. Certainly at Redrow, we're trying to address the skills shortage. 15% of our workforce are trainees.
John, is Bovis still on the market now that its share price has recovered, do you think?
I don't believe that's the case, but perhaps you ask Greg Fitzgerald on Thursday. He'll no doubt tell you.
I look forward to that conversation, as I'm sure you are paying a great deal of attention to it as well. One of the more controversial issues in the UK housing market is leaseholds. How much longer do you think the current scenario is going to be there for? Do you think in the long term you'll be able to sell properties leasehold?
Well, look, I think there's two parts to this, isn't there? There's leasehold on apartments, and there's not really an alternative that's been tried and tested. So I suspect, leaseholds on apartments will continue. Leaseholds on houses, at Redrow, we've been selling leasehold houses in the northwest for many years. It's been customary to do so, and our terms and conditions have been fine. But we have to accept that there's been some practices that have concerned consumers. Which means that actually, consumer sentiment for for leasehold houses has been dented, and we're having to respond to that. So we are in a transition at the moment of changing from leasehold to freehold. We're seeing prices go up a little bit to reflect that, but we've got a sensible transition in dealing with our customers.
Just more broadly, you're a business that is going to be affected by sterling. What is the sterling effect in these latest set of figures?
Well, there really isn't any, I would have to say. I think there's two parts of our business if you look at exchange rates. One is, there's an element of our business, particularly in London, which is overseas buyers. We've not seen any dent in that demand at all. In fact, it's helped, of course, by the exchange rate. And then you've got to look at our material supplies and which ones are affected by exchange rates. Well, most of what we put into a house is manufactured in the UK. There are some materials that are coming in that have been affected by exchange rates, and timber prices have gone up, but it's not a huge impact on our business.